Welcome to the Ronnie Resonance Podcast, a space for women in transition, becoming, and rebirth. I'm Ronnie, an intuitive guide, mentor, and multi-dimensional human learning right alongside you. Here we explore identity shifts, intuition, alignment, purpose, and the deeper truths you've been feeling but maybe haven't said out loud yet. This is where you return to yourself, gently, honestly, and with resonance. Take a breath. You're exactly where you're meant to be. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Ronnie Resonance Podcast. This month, inside the Becoming Sanctuary, our theme is embodiment and becoming. And what we're really talking about is what it means to return home to yourself. And I'm not talking about becoming somebody better or more perfect or, some polished spiritual version of yourself, but really returning to who you are underneath the fear, conditioning, old wounds, expectations, and all of the versions of you that were built to survive. Because I think somewhere along the way, many of us started becoming who we thought we needed to be instead of who we actually are. And what I've realized in my own life is that your highest self isn't really some future version of you that you have to keep chasing. It's who you return to when you start choosing what's actually aligned for you over and over and over again. That is embodiment. It's not perfection. It's not these rigid routines. It's not this spiritual superiority and not having everything figured out either. So it's just this repeated alignment that you choose every time. So today we're talking about what your highest self actually looks like, what embodiment really means, and how to begin living as the truest version of yourself in a way that actually feels good, grounded, and real. So before we get started, just a quick note, everyone joining will be muted and cameras will be off just to keep the space focused and easy to move through. You can absolutely use the chat throughout, and I'll be checking that as we go, and I'll be doing my best to respond in real time. If something resonates, you can simply say that you agree, throw a thumbs up in the chat. You really don't need to send multiple messages. And if you have a question, make sure you drop it in the chat and I'll get back to it when I can. So, all right, let's get into it. So, I think the biggest point that I want to make when we talk about your highest self is that your highest self is not this like hierarchy. It's really more about your inner truth. So your higher self, it's not something that means that you are, better than somebody else. It's not meaning that, oh, I'm ahead and you're behind or something like that. It's not saying that I'm way more evolved than you. And the biggest distinction I want to say is that this is not about perfection at all. It's not about having these flawless routines, flawless habits, flawless mindsets. Your highest self is your truest self, who you were before fear told you who to be, before any of your conditioning, before shame, before you maybe started to feel like you had to perform, before you started people pleasing, and really before proving. People pleasing and proving like to go hand in hand, and before survival mode, and really just returning home to yourself. It's all about really returning back to who you were before all of that happened. So I know I talk about alignment a lot, and that is one of the main things I do. I feel like for me, I find way more times than not, where people are out of alignment in their life. And that causes a lot of disruption. So when you see me talking about, boundaries and different things like that, that has everything to do with alignment and the things that pull us out of alignment. And when people want to connect with their highest self, I think one of the easiest ways is to continuously choose from alignment, from that place repeatedly. When you feel aligned in your life, usually it feels good, you feel energized. When something is misaligned, it usually will show up in different places of your life, and you might have emotional reactions, physical reactions. You might have this reoccurring pattern with the same person, or whatever. But the thing is that if you were to choose the issues that you're having, like the misaligned things, you're going to continuously get misaligned things. If you always choose from your most authentic self and the thing that feels most aligned. So in this moment, if somebody asks you a question, and let's say they say, "Do you want to go to dinner tonight?" And there's something in you that says, "No, I really don't want to go to dinner." Choosing to say no to going to that dinner at that point is an aligned choice. If you decide that you do want to go to the dinner and you get that instant knowing of, yes, I want to go, and you choose to go, that is being in alignment with yourself. So, why that matters so much is that the more that we choose the things that feel good to us, that feel natural to us, the more that we align ourselves with our higher self. Alignment plays a huge role when it comes to really embodying your most highest self. So, I want to talk a little bit. I've talked about in my podcast episodes before, but I still think this has a lot to do with this particular conversation. But in the fall, this past fall, 2025, I had what I would call definitely an awakening. I have had plenty of other awakenings in my life, but this was definitely something that was almost like a crazy realization that I had. And, my other spiritual awakenings would have been more like, oh my God, this food can't be right for us. We got to eat healthy, and trying to force everybody to see what I see and all of these things. And so what I've realized is the awakening that I had in the fall, I think, was more of me embodying my higher self, of this awakening of being like, oh, this is who I really am, and this is what I need to be doing with my life. So what happened was that I had this realization in my life that this version of my life, it was not sustainable anymore. And I was asking myself, like, what the hell do I do? What's going to happen in 6 months? And, I had done some therapy in the past and things like that. And I started to realize that some of the therapy stuff that I'd learned or whatever, things just started to click into place in a way that I understood before, but there was just this knowing of like, oh my gosh, now I connect the dots now. I understand something different now about my life and about life in general. And so as my business is starting to struggle and things like that, I that started happening in the fall, and I realized that I had to think about what's going to happen in 6 months. What am I going to do? What is my business going to look like? All of these things. And I think what I realized was that this isn't going to last another 6 months. The way it's going right now is not going to last another 6 months. So that is really what prompted me to start asking myself, what is it that I really want? Because I even asked myself, okay, let's say the clients all come back in tomorrow and I am busy and I'm thriving and I'm all the things. It was a weird realization of thinking like, I don't even want that. Like, I'm over here crying, struggling, trying to get my business to succeed. And I'm over here also thinking, even if it does succeed, do I even want this? And that was such a weird place to be because I started my business in 2016. I've had some reinventions over the years as far as like changing my business and just pivoting and trying new things and stuff. But, that was something that I started to realize was that, yes, you've worked all this time on this business. Yes, you've done all these things. But you're also a completely different person now in your 30s than you were in your 20s. In 2016, I was 23 years old. That's when I started my business. And I think back in your 20s, you are coming sometimes from more of an ego space where you're like, Or maybe you think that there's only one way. You just haven't had a lot of experiences to know that, hey, there's other ways to go about your job. There's other ways to do things that, or other ways to make money doing what you love. And a lot of it might be something that you think isn't possible because society says it's not possible, or society says this is the box you have to fit in. This is the jobs you have to take. These are the things that you have to do. So what happened was that I started realizing that, okay, there might be more. There might be something different. There might be a different approach that I haven't thought about when it comes to my business. And so with the therapy stuff clicking into place, I started to feel like I was more in a clear mind of like understanding the things I learned through therapy. But the other thing I started to do, or not started, but I just started to really dive into it way more. I was at a place where I was like, I don't even know who the fuck I am anymore at that point. Cause I was like, I'm supposed to be wanting this business. I don't want it, but I'm also trying to like be in survival mode to keep it afloat. And so what I started doing more was diving into my astrology, my birth chart, my human design chart. I just started getting all these self-discovery tools and like personality tests and stuff that really started to validate my inner knowing, my inner feelings that I had around my business and around just my life in general, I feel like. And so when I started to realize, oh, you're a projector. Oh, you're a deep feeler. Oh, you're a guide and a teacher. Oh, you're this, that, and the other. I started to realize that like I'm kind of doing that in my business right now, but at the same time, I'm not. And so I started to have some realizations of how things could be done differently. At the time, I thought, okay, I need to part with my spa. I need to, just start that whole process. And that getting out of my lease and all that stuff, it's been interesting. I'm still hanging on to one room right now. One got rented, the other one is still in the process of being rented. But at that time, I was like, okay, I just got to be done and I got to focus on this guiding, teaching things. I got to share with other people the things that I've learned, how I've helped myself come to this realization and all the work and self-discovery it has taken to truly understand who I am. Because a lot of the time, you have the world and everybody else telling you who you are or telling you who you should be. And so I kind of thought, okay, maybe I'm not supposed to use my energy as physical energy, an esthetician, whatever. And so I started realizing that, like, from the work that I've used with or learned, from the work that I've done and I've learned through working with clients, working with employees, working with many different people over the years, many women, I started to realize that, like, okay, this is what I've always wanted. When I was mentoring estheticians, I was like, I want to talk more about mindset. I want to talk about alignment. I want to talk about making their lives and their jobs work for them. And so it started with something like that. And I realized, like, oh, I could help people on a bigger scale. And something really funny that I've been manifesting for a long time is multiple streams of income. And so I thought, okay, I can have a path here. I can have a path here for income. I could have a path here. And I was just thinking of all the ways that I could make money, basically, with this new thing that I was doing. And funny enough, a few months later, I get offered an opportunity to, once my lease is up, to go in more of like a collective space where I wouldn't necessarily have to furnish the room or do anything. It's just an hour by hour rate, and I can just see my clients when I want to. And I don't have to necessarily run a full blown spa business that I have to be there every day. And there were so many things that I was realizing that I thought I had to give everything up when I realized, no, again, you have to make it work for you. Your specialty, your thing that you have gotten in this or have learned in this life is really through skin. And that's where alignment started for me. Was I was seeing patterns and seeing how things could be out of alignment internally based on what the skin was doing. So I realized, even with estheticians and things like that, I was also seeing things within these people who, when you tell your employer, like, yes, I want X, Y, and Z, there was always something in me who was like, no, I don't think that's what she wants. I don't think that's what's going on. I don't think, like, every time it was like, it's almost like I knew something they didn't know that I knew, but I just knew. And I was always really good about putting people on those different paths and seeing where they would flourish the most and being able to direct them that way and guide them and help them step into their power. And so I realized I was inadvertently doing that. I didn't even realize. And all this time I thought when it came to mentoring estheticians, it was just about doing a service better, doing this better, doing that better. But at the same time, to do anything better, you need to have the foundation of who you are at the end of the day and be true to that and be operating true to that. So I was just finding that, okay, I thought I had to run this one business and find multiple streams of income through this one business. But the business is so much larger than the spa. When I say business, like, I'm talking about just a spa, like not just a spa, but like, you know what I mean? Just like a brick and mortar business that has services. And then we do a bunch of other things that generate income. But that wasn't aligning with me anymore. And so what I realized was, I need also finance with my astrology says, I find opportunities, partnership, financial growth through collaboration, partnership, all of that stuff. And so I started leaning into things like that and finding the different avenues that would help for, things like this. But the biggest takeaway for this story that I want to say is that my finances are pretty much still the same as they were in November. And my external life is fairly the same. I don't have a ton of the clients coming in. I don't have money just rolling in. I don't have all of these things. And I'm just being honest about that. It has nothing to do with my capabilities or my lack or whatever. This is just where we are in the world. And I can't force that. But something that has shifted internally for me because I've started to choose alignment, choosing things that feel good, and saying no to the things that I don't want to do. My internal world has completely changed. I just have such like a deeper peace than I ever have. Like something could throw me off and there's just something in me that it's like, it's okay, like they're on their journey, I'm on my journey. I can hear you, but I don't have to absorb that. I just have more self-trust too, like how I respond to things, when I make decisions, saying yes and no, and all of these things. Because let me just say this, even if, let's say, the money's not coming in the way that I want it to right now, right? What is changing is through these aligned actions, aligned things that I'm doing and choosing, I have had opportunity after opportunity after opportunity come through. Not every opportunity is going to make you thousands of dollars. Okay. It's not like that. Sometimes it's about planting seeds. Sometimes, right now for me, I feel like a lot of the opportunities that are coming through to me are a bunch of people kind of coming at me, and it's giving me an opportunity to practice alignment when it comes to working with other people. And there's been people that come to me and they're like, yeah, I want to do all this stuff. But then they don't actually want to do any of the work or the effort, or they really want me to do it all because they see me as somebody who is capable or has owned businesses or whatever when it comes to planning like an event with them or doing things like that. And so what I realized is like when I say no to an opportunity, it doesn't mean that, you know, that there's not going to be anything else that comes along. I've had plenty of things that come along. Right now, I'm in this organizational phase where I'm like, okay, who's going to be in this? Who's going to partner with me? Who's going to do all this stuff with me? And so I'm just trusting how I feel about certain people, dynamics, energies, all of the things. I'm just trusting that right now. And so I also feel like, I have stronger boundaries with people. I'm just more confident in myself and what I bring to the table, like even posting online or things like that. Like, I don't give a fuck if I make a penny, a dollar, $1,000, $1 billion. It's I'm just good with myself, and I have everything that I need. I'm fine. So what I'm saying is that I think that I just have less attachment to this approval. Like a lot of the time it was like we needed this energy exchange to prove that we are doing good. Like I don't need to make money in order for me to know that like I'm in the right space. I think I'm in the right space that is going to lead to that eventually. And so, yeah. Anyway, so I also have just more comfort showing my true self. Like I'm showing up online. It's might be cringe to some people that I'm like, I'm doing tarot on social media. Oh my God, who does she think she is? But it's like, I love this. This helps me open up my intuition more. This helps me connect more. This helps me kind of go deeper on what somebody might be asking or going through or whatever. I use it as a tool to help me. But I've been more comfortable with showing up and showing my spiritual side and showing my day to day. Like I've been obsessed with birds outside on my deck. If you follow me on Instagram, you know. And I post it on my story all the time about birds and all the things. And it's like people probably thinking, what is the point in this? Why is she doing this? But it's like, this is another part of me that I'm showing that I haven't shown before, that I'm very connected with animals, nature. I love it. And I think I also feel like I notice things more. Just since like, I mean, I've lived in this house for 6 years. I sit on this deck out here every day that I can, that it's warm and sunny. And before I would like not even, I would just be in my phone. I wouldn't even be paying attention. And this spring, I've just been so immersed into everything and like realizing the amount of things that are around us every day that we're not even paying attention to. And so I think that's the other thing is just like this freedom and being authentic and sharing these parts of my life. And it's not always about business or trying to be some sort of whatever. Like I'm just showing my authentic life and my authentic self. So, all that being said, my inner change, like my inner self, I feel like changed first. And like outwardly, my life is slowly changing around me. And I think that that's something people need to understand is like it's all about choice and making these aligned choices. The more that you are your most authentic self, whatever feels true to you in that moment, is what you need to be doing. And the more you make those just internal choices, internal agreements with yourself or whatever, you'll start to see how things change around you. And that's, a whole conversation about energy, but everything is energy. And it's like the law of attraction. What you get is what you give is what you get. So if you're constantly stressed or you're constantly whatever, like you're going to continue to get that. If you want to change your life, it's time to start making these like little, I don't know, I call them micro alignments or different things like that that allow you to start slowly changing your world around you. So I think one of the biggest things from my past identity, before this awakening and just who I was before, to be honest with you, some people just like maybe don't even see a difference. Maybe people still view me as who I was before. And that could be some of the stuff why when I post or do whatever, some people are kind of like, what the fuck is she doing? But at the same time, I do feel very different inside, which I think is showing externally. Like one of the biggest things is I had to stop performing success. That is a huge thing, specifically in the beauty industry, but more specifically with female entrepreneurs. You probably remember there was a whole like boss girl identity, thing going on for a really long time. And I just think that that was like, I think part of that was women really finding their place in just the world and being empowered. But I think some of that empowerment when it came to this boss girl movement or whatever, it really had to do with kind of making almost like a hierarchy of like, okay, these girls are the boss bitches and everybody below them, like, fuck you, basically. And I'm not saying everybody viewed it that way, but I do think that there was a little bit of toxicity around this girl boss, boss girl type energy. And so there were times where it was like, okay, we do these photo shoots as salons and spas, and we all look like all like badass bitches and like things like that. And, it's really great and everything. But again, it can be intimidating to clients. It can be, it is very performative, I feel like, to make yourself look like this particular identity, because I think women think, okay, we're going to get more respect doing that. But a lot of what that can look like a lot of the time is this proving energy, like sharing every single win that you ever have to social media, or posting about how you're so exhausted from taking every single client because you're just a hardworking bitch, things like that. Like, it's not necessarily a flex that you're constantly proving. And so that was something that I had to shed, where I'm like, who cares? Who is even investing this much time and energy in my life to care what I'm trying to prove? That, like, I can be successful as an esthetician. I can be successful as a spa owner. I can be successful as an employer. All of those things. I think that I was also just trying to prove that my business could work. Like, a lot of us hang on to business and things or whatever because we're like, oh, this is going to work. It's going to work. I promise you guys, it's going to work. And it may not. If you keep feeling like you're pushing uphill, like I was for so long, we were like, I'm good at what I do. Why the hell is this so hard? And it had more to do with like, this was here for a season. You're done with this version of the way that you're working. And now it's time to shift your perspective that this can be done a different way. And so I had to realize that, like, you've proved already your business can work. You've already proved all of this. It's okay. It's okay to close this down, pivot, and change how your business is working better for you, because it should matter more how I feel about how I'm doing my business or how I'm running my business and how I'm operating in life, how I'm making money, how I'm working, than anybody else should care about that. So I had to realize, like, who am I doing this for? And I think even like in the beauty industry, I'm just obviously talking about beauty industry because that's where I came from, but there's this like trying to prove your worth. Like, I'm worthy of this money. I'm worthy of success. I'm worthy of these things. And so that's where that proving comes in, where you just hold on to things longer than you need to because you're like, I've been working so hard to get to this goal of, let's say I want to make $10,000 a month, right? And you're like, I'm worth that. I can do it. I'm going to work my ass off and I'm going to do it. And then like you're working your ass off and like it's hard as hell. And it's like, what the fuck is this even for anymore? Like, why am I exhausted all the time? Like, I can't even enjoy my life. I'm making all this money. I can't even enjoy it. So it's like, are you really proving your worth, or are you just proving you can make the money and then what? You're left with nothing? Like, you're left with exhaustion. You're left with not even being able to use the money that you earned. So I think the other thing too with people is that they try to just fit into this industry mold. I think we get caught up a lot thinking like, okay, if we can't get clients or we can't get money or we can't get X, Y, and Z, we're going to look at somebody else and we're going to say, okay, what are they doing? What are they doing in order to do this? And I got to do that. And so it creates this dynamic where like literally everybody starts looking the same. It's like some coach comes out and is like, this is not it anymore. And if you're not doing this, then you're behind. And it's like, everybody has different working styles. Everybody has different ways that they want to look and be in the industry. And I think that was something for me where I was like, I'm starting to just like call bullshit on a lot of the stuff that people are saying about the industry. And that I don't want to fit in a mold. And that the whole reason that I got into the beauty industry was because of the creativeness and because of the self expression and individuality and all of that. And so I just started to realize that, like, I don't need to fit in with this. I can be myself and people will just appreciate that. And that works for me. So I think what happens when you start to fit into the industry mold, you start to brand yourself around what maybe looks successful. And that was, all of these things I did. I thought, okay, if I do this girl boss photo shoot, everyone's going to be like, wow, she's so cool. I want to go to her place, or whatever. Or like, I don't know. I think that, and even just like having more employees, like if you're thinking like, oh, I got another employee that makes me like better, or that makes me more desirable, or they think that I am doing so good that everybody wants to work for me. Like shit like that. Like that's not necessarily success, having more employees. Honestly, what I realize is that it's honestly more work. It's more stress, honestly, just managing more people. And really, it was like, again, I'm just making this look a certain way, but is this truly what I want? And I wanted to help people. And I realized that, it wasn't fulfilling to me the way I was with me helping estheticians. And that has nothing to do with estheticians. It just made me realize that the way I was teaching and mentoring wasn't really what I wanted to do. And I didn't want it to be industry focused or just specific. So that was something else that I was like, okay, I don't want to have to, you know, brand this way towards these specific people. I want to help women in general. And I think the other thing too was like dressing and like appearing a certain way. I think that again, going back to like the girl boss, whatever energy, I think a lot of people think that like, oh, they got to wear heels and dresses and look corporate and like whatever. And in reality, like it's not that. And honestly, I've gotten to the point where I'm like, that's not really even me. Like I like to be very comfortable. I don't want to constantly be like dressing up and proving like, they always say like dress for the job that you want, but it's like even if you worked, even if you had like some high-end business, you can still dress how you want and still look high end. So I don't think that it's always something that you have to like you have to look a certain way unless you have like a uniform you have to wear for work or something. But anyway, I think that that's just another thing for me was that I was realizing that like I I wasn't fitting in what I was wearing, or I would see people wear certain things and I'm like, oh, like I want to be comfortable at work, whatever. Um, and then also I think I mask in general. I'm ADHD. I definitely got exhaustion from I think just wearing a mask all the time. And really just trying to fit in with the industry and do what I thought was what I was supposed to do, be how I was supposed to be in order to gain respect, in order to grow, to do, whatever. So, I just stopped letting my appearance, my brand, um, my business, like I stopped forcing things and I really just started to let things evolve naturally. And so that's when I think like even when I started doing that and I started realizing like with my business, I'm like, okay, I don't know if this is for me anymore. I don't know if this is how I want to be running my business. I don't want to be attached to a location. I don't want this, that, and the other. And so I started to kind of see how it was already evolving naturally out of my own control. Like that's what prompted this like awakening, was really just this starting to have this fear around my business. And as I started to make aligned decisions, my everything did just start to evolve naturally how it was supposed to be. And so who I feel now, my authenticity feels lighter just to be myself. It feels like I'm not really in a specific industry anymore. I'm literally just me talking online or just talking to people and mentoring and helping. I'm a little bit in the wellness space. I'm a little bit in the beauty space. I'm a little bit in the spiritual space. So I'm just kind of letting myself be just flow between everything and like just again just do things that feel aligned. And I just want to the point that I want to make really is that the success that you have, it just looks different when you're aligned. Success doesn't always look like a bunch of money or anything like that. Success to me just seems like, okay, I can literally wake up every day and I can like do my job and still have like a work life balance and focus on my spirituality, and I can focus on like my healing and just my own personal growth. And to me, I think that's what success is now, is like having that opportunity to do that. Whereas before I was thinking success was all about money and the way things looked and like proving and like just forcing things and like having this like crazy will to just make things work and like all the things. So I just feel like, again, like success looks very different when you are aligned and you're not like forcing everything and all of that. That is, it's one of those things that you don't really realize until you're in it. But like right now, I feel like I have success in my life. I feel like I am good, and I feel like I'm on the path to, yes, maybe some of the external success of like money and different things like that. But I can tell that I'm growing in other spaces of my life, and also mostly because I'm growing internally and like who I am inside. But all of that being said, embodiment is repeated alignment. It's not perfection. I said that earlier, but that's the biggest thing that I want to talk about. And embodiment really is something where, like for my job, I used to wake up every day and be like, oh, I'm dreading this, I'm dreading that, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And it was always just like a lot to deal with. And now what I've noticed as I've started to embody more of my higher self, where I try to get up and I try to like work out, and I think like, okay, what would she do? Like I would ask myself, like, what would my highest self choose right now? And I had to realize it was not like, what do I feel like doing in survival mode? It's like, what would aligned me choose? And what's so funny about it is that, again, let's say you're like, I want to work out every morning. And then you wake up every morning and you're like, oh, this fucking sucks. I don't want to work out. And then you're, let's say, midday, and you ask yourself that question, like, what would my highest self do? Like on an average day, like if I woke up in the morning, like what would she be doing? And what's so funny is I'm like, she would journal, she would work out, she would have a slow morning, sip her coffee, she would manifest, all of the things. And I was like thinking, I'm like, well, why the hell aren't you doing that now? Like, why aren't you like just doing that now? If you're the one that's saying, like, I want to do this, and then you're like, I don't want to do it. And then you think about who my higher self, it's like, then it seems like, of course, she could do it because she can do it. But it's like, I am that same person. So why can't I try to embody that person? Why is that so hard? And so I think a lot of it too is just like, I think I just started trying to find ways to make it work for me. It was never about, perfection when it came to embodiment and aligning with my, having embodiment to align with my highest self, or embodying my highest self, I should say. So I really just started honoring my nervous system and protecting my energy and making sure that I was doing what felt good in that moment. There's still going to be times where like you wake up in the morning, you're like, I don't want to work out. But if you were going to try to embody your higher self, you would just do it. And then after the fact, you're like, oh, okay, I'm glad I did it. But you can also tailor it. So like if there's a day where I want to work out, I know I need to work out. I know that my higher self would work out. And I'm over here like, I don't want to, maybe that day I just don't do a crazy Pilates workout or something. Like maybe I just walk on my treadmill. I just find better ways for things to work for me while still doing it. And not every day is going to look exactly the same. I also have noticed that because of these aligned things that I'm doing, like, I don't know, I have this weird, clear, I just feel more energized in a way that I'm like, okay, so I did all this stuff. Now I got to make sure this room's cleaned up because I feel better when my space is cleaned up and all that. And just really choosing these supportive habits that help me to just stay in that embodied place and stay aligned with that higher version of myself. So, I have a lot of boundaries with my time. I've got boundaries with my schedule, with different people. It's just because it's important, because there's so many things that can throw you off of alignment. Again, if the more you choose alignment, the more you're choosing embodiment, embodying that higher version. So when you have things that throw you off, it does take you out of alignment, but it's about, finding ways to get back into alignment. And so I think one of the best ways is like choosing supportive habits every day. So you kind of know, like, okay, that whatever, but I'm going to do this habit and it'll get me back on track. There's going to always be things that disrupt our nervous system or whatever. And so every day it's about these small aligned choices, and they start to compound over time. And like I said, like there's going to be some days that rest is going to feel aligned for you, and it's important to listen to that. I think that is one of the hardest things. It's like if there's a morning where you're like, I know I need to work out, but you already know you worked out for the last 5 days, or you worked out even just the day before. And you're like, today I am drained. I need a break. I my mind's not working. I nothing is happening up here. I cannot think straight. I think those are the days where you're like, okay, yeah, I need to rest. I need to maybe not, stress about what needs to get done. Right now, my body is literally telling me I need to sit my ass down and not do anything. And so then there's other days that, action is aligned, things that you need to get done, whatever. You're like, these days where you're like randomly like, oh my God, I have so much energy today. And you just want to like reorganize your whole house. There's just moments like that you have, or days like that. And so it's really about discerning like what you're feeling in that moment. And that is embodiment. Because like I said, alignment, again, it's not always about being like, it's not about perfection. It's not about like, well, your aligned self said that you would work out every day, so you should do it. It's like, no, my higher self probably doesn't work out every day. I mean, is she choosing to work out more times than not? Yes, because she understands the health benefits and why that's so important, and how that maybe gets her closer to her inner connects with herself deeper by doing these different things. But I think if you are an embodied person, you're embodying your higher self. Like I said, when to say no and when to say yes. When to know when to rest and know when to act in a situation or a day or whatever. So you're going to have times where, you slip up and maybe you don't embody yourself that day, or maybe you don't make the best aligned choices or whatever. But that's what it is to be human. And that's where some of the lessons come into play that we have to learn here. And so it's important to just do your best at all times, to try to just make the best aligned choices and decisions at all times, and understanding that it's okay to give yourself grace when you may not have a day that looks the way that you wanted it to go. But as long as you know at the end of the day that you made those embodied or aligned choices, even if it feels in the moment you're like, oh, hustle culture is really telling me I shouldn't lay down today, I have so much to do, but my body's telling me something different. Listening to your body is way more important. Listening to your body is something that's going to really get you towards your goals faster. And I think some people are so confused by that because they're like, well, I can't let a second of the day go by because the more that I procrastinate or push this out, the further it's going to go. But I just want you to know that if you get tired, if you're having a slow day, or you're tired, or you're whatever, like it's okay to say, okay, I need to take a break so that I have the energy tomorrow to just whip this out, just to finish this project and I can be done. And so I think returning to that embodied place of remembering like what is embodiment to me, and like having grace and knowing that it's not about perfection and just about trying to be as aligned as possible. Alignment may not always look like a perfect decision. It might look like it feels right to you, but some other people may not understand why you chose that decision. But it's always about returning back to what feels true to you. And that is the embodiment of your higher self. So alignment is not going to look the same for everybody. Embodiment doesn't necessarily mean this rigid morning routine, like I mentioned. And it doesn't always equal like one perfect formula. And, with somebody with ADHD, every day is a struggle for me. I'm kind of all over the place, and not in a bad way, but in a way where, I have to be flexible, because having a flexible schedule, it can still be aligned, like, um,
So let's go back to working out, because I feel like that's a big theme around this. But like, I intuitively understand that like each morning I'm going to feel differently, or I have different days or whatever. And so I think that I've been trying to be flexible and not be so rigid. So I'll tell the story really quick. But I was watching the viral podcast like last week or the week before, and there was a caller that called in, and they were saying how I think their fiance had just proposed to them, and she really wants to marry them, but she hasn't been honest about something. And something she wasn't honest about was that her fiance wakes up every single morning. He like has the same exact routine every morning. He like drinks coffee, he journals, he stretches and does yoga, he works out. And it's like the same amount of time every day, the same drink, the same, it's very, very, I would say rigid, but for this person, like that might work for them as far as like they need a very, very, very consistent routine every day. And that's how they feel good. Whereas like mine having ADHD, like there's going to be days where I'm like, you know, today I need to work out, but I don't want to do the same workout that I do every day. So today I'm going to walk on my treadmill, and tomorrow I'll do more of like a strength training type workout. Or something that I started doing with my workouts is that I have a hard time doing like, so I love Pilates, but I think Pilates causes me to like get in my head too much. Like if you're doing the same movements over and over, or like I can't explain it very well, but like I started doing this workout this morning actually that was like, okay, I walk for 5 minutes, I get off and I do an arm workout. Then I walk for another 5 minutes, I get off and I do a leg workout. And so this goes on for 30, 45 minutes of off and on and whatever. And it's like basically a full body routine with cardio. And I might do that a couple of times a week and that be part of my routine. But, I had to find the things that work for me and what makes me want to do it. It's like if you say, I'm going to do Pilates every morning and this is going to be part of aligning with my higher self. If you have days where you wake up and you're like, oh my God, I cannot do this Pilates workout again. I can't do another Pilates workout. I'm just over it. Okay, do a different workout. Go for a walk. Take your dogs for a walk. Working out doesn't mean that you have to be like lifting crazy weights and like strength training all the time and getting muscles and all those things. It doesn't mean that. So I think it's important that you intuitively understand when you wake up in the morning, like, today I'm going to do some journaling, drink coffee, and then I'm going to work out. And then tomorrow I'm going to wake up, maybe do like a morning meditation and do this other workout, or just take my dogs for a walk. But it's just choosing what you feel in that moment, if you feel good about it. And I think it's not forcing. If you have to force yourself to do anything, it's probably not it, because again, consistency without, if you have rigidity around your routines, then that's going to cause this inner conflict with yourself when you have a day where you're like, oh, I don't really feel like doing this. So you just have to continue to return to your body and trust your capacity for that day, and just adjust your whole routine with grace, and just stop comparing how others embody themselves. Like, again, you might see people that work out every day. They've got these crazy bodies. They seem like they eat the perfect diet. They do all the perfect things, whatever. Your journey has nothing to do with that, because your own alignment is personal to you. And so that's why it's so important that you choose authenticity over imitation, trying to imitate other people and their routines and what works for them. That was something even for me, like when I realized like, oh, I'm a projector and I don't have all the same energy as everybody else, and I can't work this job the same as my friend, and I can't take care of my household in the same way that other people can, or I have to be more strategic in how I do it. And so I think that through understanding yourself better, it really does help you understand how to be as authentic to yourself as possible without trying to look at other people's things and be like, I'm not doing enough, I should be doing more. It has nothing to do with that. It doesn't matter at all, like what other people are doing. And you should just worry about yourself. So your body speaks when something is out of alignment, So like I said earlier, if you've got anxiety, if you've got dread, if there's exhaustion, those are all things that are information that you need to be listening to and understanding where that is coming from. If you have any sort of nervous system dysregulation when you go to work, when you hang out with your family, when you hang out with a friend, when you hang out with your partner, um, when you do different tasks, things like that, if it is dysregulating to you, then no, don't do it. It's always about choosing what feels right. Some of us might have sensory overwhelm when we go certain places. Again, that might not be great for you, or like the social exhaustion. I used to force myself literally to be social, to get over my fears, to do this stuff. And it's like you can only do exposure therapy for so long. If you know that this is a trigger for you or something that is just not comfortable, it's okay to say no, despite what society says or how people think you should be living your life. So I think that another thing too that can pull people out of alignment is having resentment, having this heaviness that's lingering, something that they are having a problem with somebody else, or feeling really bad, or somebody made them feel a certain way. There's also this thing about like the body keeping the score and like holding on to shit that it just doesn't matter. And not about that only. Like sometimes we inadvertently hold on to stuff, like our body holds on to stuff that we don't even realize, different traumas, things like that. And so it's important to listen to your body and know like how you feel about certain things, and maybe try to understand on a deeper level why you're feeling that way. Where is that coming from? And what kind of healing and shadow work do you need to do? I think another thing too is, another way to understand if you're out of alignment is really through skin. And that's kind of where, again, like I've started on this whole journey, is that your skin reflects stress that you have going on. If you have breakouts, it can reflect like inflammation that you have in your body. It can reflect if you're overwhelmed. Like me, for example, I get very red in the face and the neck. As I've gotten older, it's traveled almost my whole upper body is like this. There could be anything. There could be stress, there could be hot, cold, there could be inflammation, there could be maybe overwhelm. Somebody could say something to me, and all of a sudden I start to get really hot, and it has nothing to do with what they said, but that triggered a thought that I started thinking about, that triggered this influx of stress response that my skin shows, of like redness and like what people would think of as if you were embarrassed, or whatever, like you get really red or you start blushing. But mine is like on another level. Mine is like there's no rhyme or reason sometimes, and that can be really hard because people out in public are like, are you okay? And they start to think that she's embarrassed, she's that, but it's like it's not that. But I've had to understand that, like, if there's places or people or things or whatever that continuously put me in that state, that stress response where my skin flares up and I start sweating and um I'm just beet red, you know what I mean? Like that, it's like I shouldn't need that. Or anybody that even brings it up, like, oh, your skin's getting red or you're red or whatever, that's another part of alignment. It was like, maybe those people aren't right for you then, if they're going to even, mention that to you. So these physical symptoms, they can really be messengers, right? Like your body's not trying to punish you, which I thought for a really long time. I was like, oh my God, my body, like you're making this so bad. This is more embarrassing because now people think that it's this when it's really not, or whatever. Um, but this is really just about like your body communicating. And that's something that I started to learn, that nobody else has to understand why that is, but I have to understand what my body is trying to say in that moment, and really slowing down enough to listen to, okay, well, why am I feeling this way? And focus on the breath and bring myself back to a state of peace, so that I don't spiral in whatever thought, or in the thought process of like, oh my God, my skin's turning red. And then that makes it worse because you're anxious about it. So there's plenty of things. I'm a very much a feeler, and so it makes sense why I would have body responses and body reactions to different things. Even when I'm talking to certain people, I mean, I will sweat sometimes. Like I will sweat so much because I'm transmuting this energy. I'm picking up their energy and I'm cycling it through, and I'm trying to like hold the energy and the space and all the things. And so it really can just be a lot. And so all of these things definitely can bring you out of alignment, but it's really about understanding how to pull yourself back into alignment and back into just this like neutral, calm space to be at. So not everybody is going to be where you are in the awakening process when it comes to connecting with your higher self or staying in alignment and understanding what alignment is and what that looks like. The awakening has stages. Like I really think that I can see different parts of my life where I've had different awakenings, and this recent one in the fall being by far I think the most intense one that I've had and the most like come to Jesus moment, I guess, if you want to say that. So I think for a long time, in my early 20s, I was like in this like advocate stage where I was like trying to wake everybody up. I was like, this food is like got chemicals in it. You guys need to like, can't you see this? Like, we got to be eating this. We got to, and so some of those things got really crazy for a while. And then there was like this other shift in me where I was like, okay, but you have to have balance. And like, then there was a shift in me where I was like, okay, whatever. So there's so many things where like, I think one of the initial stages is like really just trying to make people understand where you are, how you feel, these thoughts that are coming through, or these intuitive hits you're getting that you don't really realize they're intuitive hits. They're just these things you think you just thought of one day and you feel like you got to share it with the world. And people get really frustrated when others just don't see that, you know? And I think part of my embodying my higher self is realizing that everybody is on their own timeline. Everybody has their own lessons. And I've really just tried to hold space without forcing anybody else to change. Like understanding, like, okay, this person, this is where they are right now. And I can hold space for them in the space that they're in. And I'm not going to force them to understand. I'm not going to force them to change. I'm not going to force them to do anything. I just need to be there and just have this compassion without my own self abandonment, right? Like if someone's being shitty and you're like, you want to call them out for it, it's like, okay, at that point, it's like you might need to say something kindly if you can. And again, I will say though, being very direct is still kind. You can be very, very direct with people and not necessarily it be a bad thing. But I think it's important. The most important thing, it has nothing to do with correcting them or telling them anything. It's just really about if somebody's doing something that you don't like or that is not good because something or whatever, you just need to be like, okay, cool. But then I know what's true. I can be like, okay, I don't need to like abandon myself to understand them or to do whatever. So I think just having those boundaries without, resenting them for not knowing what you know or not choosing what you choose or whatever. It's like the Mel Robbins, like, let them energy. It's like if you are driving, someone's driving in front of you and they are driving like an idiot or they're not driving fast enough or whatever. It's like you laying on your horn or screaming expletives or flipping them off, even though, trust me, I've been guilty of all of it. Um, those are, you have to understand that that's affecting you more than it's affecting that person in the car in front of you, right? And this happens in so many dynamics in life. And so I think that's what Mel Robbins was essentially saying was that, you have to just let people be where they are, act how they're going to act, and still be able to hold yourself at the end of the day and just release that control over somebody else's journey and just protect your peace. Like, who wants to be anxious and who wants to be like, this bitch, like nobody really wants to be getting themselves like disrupting their nervous system, I guess I should say. Nobody really ever wants to do that. And they think that person's doing this to me, that person. And it's like, no, you have choice in this moment to literally ignore that and think of something much more positive and think of something way, happier and whatever than being pissed at somebody that gives two shits about whether you're pissed or not. So it's really just about staying rooted in your truth, despite if somebody else feels that way or not. It's okay. You can't force it. And we should all have different perspectives, anyways, is my personal opinion. But I think what I really want people to understand is your highest self is not some perfect version of you that you have to become. It's the version of you that feels most true, most honest, and most aligned, and most at home within yourself. And embodiment is simply choosing that version over and over again every single day with grace when you get off course. So, inside the extended episode, we're going to go deeper into how to practically embody your highest self in real life, what choices actually look like, how identity shifts happen, how to trust yourself more deeply, and how to stay aligned when fear, people, or old patterns try to pull you back. So, if you're a premium or VIP member inside the Becoming Sanctuary, head over to the extended podcast classroom now. The link is there and you can join me live. If you're watching on YouTube, the extended episode is available inside the Becoming Sanctuary. I'm going to go ahead and link that in the description below, along with this week's companion inner clarity tools to help you integrate what we talked about today. I want to thank you guys for being here, and I will see you over in the extended episode.